Welcome back to the Global Business Report. Nigeria has taken delivery of its first modern calibration aircraft for a whopping $8.5 million. Aviation Minister Hadi Sirika announced that the Beechcraft King Air 350i would help improve Nigeria's airspace's safety and security, added that the agony of contracting calibration aircraft to South Africa or Niger at about $500,000 every 6 months is over, and the Nigerian airspace is much safer. Aviation authorities use calibration aircraft to monitor communication and navigation equipment for accuracy and effectiveness. And joining me this morning for more information on Nigeria's new calibration aircraft is senior partner at Aglow Aviation, Tayo Ojuri. It's good to have you, Tayo.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, indeed. Now, for the benefit of the viewers, what is a calibration aircraft? Nigeria just purchased one for $8.5 million. So it's better be worth every dollar here.
Yes, I'll actually just bring it home where the rubber meets the road.
All right.
And I think we have a scale or a weighing machine in our houses. With those, you actually, from time to time after use, due to wear and tear, you actually see that scale move less than zero. So what needs to be done is to calibrate that scale. So in terms of aviation and in terms of our communication and navigational aids, is to ensure that the instrument landing system, you know, most of the aircrafts now are automated. Okay. So you have to actually ensure that the equipment on ground matches and is the same. It's what the aircraft radar is saying, says what is right on the equipment. So that has to be actually calibrated from time to time for communication purposes, for navigational aids. Yeah. And this, in the long run, helps boost our safety features. Yeah. It actually ensures that we are safe, and they ensure that what the pilot is not going too high in altitude or coming too low to meet obstructions. It could be mass, it could be all the towers or rocks. All this affects it. But once the calibration is properly done, they actually know where to go up higher and actually where to not go at the right time.
Very good, interesting development. But I'd like us to take a look at the aircraft itself. It's a Beechcraft King Air 350i, and I believe it's a turboprop.
That's it.
And I think that has a limited range. I was expecting a larger aircraft like AWACS and all these bigger ones that you see in the Air Force's military in other countries. So what is, in terms of coverage, you know, you've already said aviation safety, airspace safety and all that, but how does it go? Is it worth it, or do we need more of this?
We definitely need more, but to your first part of the question is actually, is it worth it? Is the first right step in the right direction? Yeah. So it's called baby steps. We have not had this in about 20 years. And having this actually will build human capacity development. All right. Would actually be able to use that from, you're looking at the expanse of Nigerian airports. Yeah. We have 4 major airports, and like you rightly said in the intro, it's for 6 months. So by the time we start 6 months to Lagos, the next 6 months it can go to Kano, so it can fly in the distance. It's not as if it's done every day. Okay. Over and beyond that, it can be used over for in the West Africa, where the first Nigerian government, government in West Africa to have this. So this can actually be used for commercial services, and as well as to monitor for security purposes as well, for surveillance. So this is a good equipment to serve its purpose.
Interesting. Yeah, you can have air coverage, as it were. But then again, what about the ground infrastructure to support what that aircraft is doing? Do we actually have that on ground?
Absolutely. It cannot, the aircraft wouldn't be brought in if we didn't have the infrastructure, which is the instrument landing system, the VORs, the ILSs, the what's it called, navigational aids and the communicational aids. We have track-on system. We have all the landing aids, which is key. All right. Most aircrafts, like I said earlier, would actually land with instruments. Okay. There's what you call the visual landing system or the instrument landing. Most of them land with instruments now. Okay. So we actually have this instrument existing as at today at major airports. That's why you actually have international airports that have night landing opportunities. Okay. And to ensure that those night 24-hour operations is actually consistent, the calibration needs to be done.
And just to wrap up on that aircraft itself, I would expect, given our controversial maintenance culture, as it were. So how would you gauge what has to be done? Because there's only one of this aircraft for the time being.
Absolutely. What we've actually, it's a piece of the pie, actually. When I mean a piece of the pie, we've seen developments with our maintenance of bigger aircraft being done here. We have C checks, and now Aero is doing D checks.
Okay.
So with those checks being done, I believe that we have the capacity and the manpower to be able to take care of the aircraft within Nigeria, which will ensure that the aircraft is able to serve us longer and better.
And hopefully at a minimum cost as well. All right, let's take a look at other issues. Aviation Minister Hadi Sirika's second tenure here. How would you assess the sector under his stewardship so far?
Well, I always evaluate his sector, and I've said that based on his roadmap.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, it's just like that's what he sets to do, and he was able to achieve it in the first term. I would give him a C. Okay. Based on that and what we use, being objective about it, he actually outlined the national Nigerian Air Project, which didn't come to pass. We actually had the MRO, which never started. We had the leasing company, which is not kick-started yet. Okay,
so and no reasons were given for those still, to be done?
According to what the ministry had said, they had said they had some were in being evaluated because of the process. But moving forward, what I think he has going for him now is what I call lesson learned. He's not coming into a new area. He's already learned his lesson. He knows the curves. He knows the stakeholders. I believe he's not just going to be a rookie in the business now. So with that lesson learned in the last 4 years is for him to now leapfrog into the next 4 years. And he said it in his initial statement. He said he wants to make aviation 1% of our GDP.
Yeah.
What's missing in that statement, in my opinion, is the fact that he didn't mention how that 1% from 0.6 is going to happen.
Yeah.
How are we going to leverage on infrastructure that is still very missing within our system? Infrastructure will drive lots of flight operation. It will reduce the cost for the airlines. What about the legislative and the political will, enduring the environment, being able to engage the stakeholders, the legislative framework, especially for concession of the airports? How do we go about that? What's the timeline? What do they intend achieving? This will actually ensure that the union, the major stakeholders, are actually involved in that process. Because transparency is what has been a challenge. So the other thing is security is still a challenge. Aviation is a function of perception is reality. If the traveling public feel there's peace somewhere, they're able to fly over to that location. But we still have huge security issues. So which actually, and lastly, we should see a government which is not just operating in a silo. The government should be able to operate with the leverage on agricultural policies of the administration, as well as tourism policy. Because tourism would drive aviation. It would actually be able to drive that, what we call visiting family and friends, and what we call the life-changing events, big birthdays, seasonal celebrations, which would actually help us to actually ensure that we get to that 1% of aviation, contribution of aviation to GDP.
Indeed, and it's very interesting, the thought about the tourism aspect of, and the contribution of the airport itself. It just made me remember the figures we're getting from Hong Kong, how the airport itself contributes so much to the GDP, to a large extent. And I'm just wondering, we have like several airports here, and perhaps they're not meeting their requirements or being underutilized, as it were. They're not making,
Absolutely. Even going so far to Hong Kong, in Rwanda, it's 11.2%. And I'm not going to even mention Dubai, where they actually, it's tied to their Vision 2050 and Vision 2030. And you actually can see how effective and efficient their airline has been able to drive that. So this actually is part of all encompassing to ensure that this works.
Very good. Now, being a retired pilot, Hadi Sirika, is that a plus to the sector's reforms, and especially on the technical aspect of it?
Absolutely. Like you said, apart from being a pilot, he's learned and he knows, he's been a senator as well. Okay. And obviously he knows the rudiments of working with governance and being, because it's not just being a minister, there are lots of parties involved, lots of stakeholders involved. So he's been able to maneuver through that rhythm of that process.
All right.
And obviously is to, once you know how to actually evaluate, which he should have done, is for him to leapfrog on that process.
All right, very good. Now, earlier on, you mentioned the fact that he had a roadmap for the aviation sector, and this brings me to the terms of projection for the Nigeria's aviation sector in his second term. Which challenges merit urgent attention?
It's a good question, and I really appreciate that, because obviously we always have this big, buoyant, robust ideas, and I believe it should be scalable. Scalability in the sense that, what are we just going to address infrastructure? For me, in my opinion, infrastructure will drive efficiency.
Indeed.
Infrastructure will lower the cost of operations for the airlines. Infrastructure will be able to build routes and ensure that the hub that we want to actually provide. Infrastructure would actually ensure that what we call non-aeronautical revenue for the airport, as it were, and the airport authority would increase. With that infrastructure, it is going to actually have attendant advantage of security. Yeah. With the infrastructure, with the biometric system, with a self-checking system. I'm not talking, it's not in dreamland. It's what can be achieved and attained in 2020. All right. So it's something to actually start with. So in essence, it's for us to start with the infrastructure, and with the infrastructure, then it would promote safety and security, and that would improve operations, lower costs, and then we can actually think about our airline.
Very good. Now, in 30 seconds, how would you rate our current airspace in terms of certification? 30 seconds now. 30
seconds is safe. It's but obviously the only room available is room for improvement, and obviously with things like with calibration and next steps of ensuring all the equipment, navigational aids are upgraded, it's going to be better.
All right. Aglow's Tayo Ojuri, it's a pleasure having you on the program, as always.
It's always a pleasure. Have a great day.